History beyond sleep, where the secrets textbooks tried to bury finally awaken. Tonight,
They gathered not in the bustling squares of the city, nor in the echoing marble of temples, but in quiet spaces, candlelit, hidden, reverent. Vaulted ceilings above them, ancient symbols around them, and a sky of stars watching silently overhead. The Freemasons, shrouded in ritual and time, met not only to build structures of stone, but to preserve ideas far more fragile. Symbols, stories, secrets. No one quite agrees on when the first lodge opened its doors, or if doors even existed at all. Some say the craft began with the cathedral builders of medieval Europe, men who worked with hammer and chisel by day and pondered sacred proportions by night. Others suggest it is older still, that its origins lie in the desert winds of Egypt, or the high terraces of Solomon's temple, or in myths passed from druid to priest, priest to mystic, mystic to mason. But wherever it began, it always began with silence. Imagine for a moment such a lodge. Stone walls cool to the touch, their foundations older than the nation that surrounds them. Within, the flicker of flame dances across the eyes of men who wear aprons not of servitude, but of tradition, simple claws imbued with stories. Around them, tools of their ancient trade rest quietly, the level, the plumb, the square, and the compass. Each one a symbol, each one a key, but tonight they do not come to build, not a cathedral nor a cornerstone. They come to remember. They come for the books. You might not see them at first. There are no towering shelves, no grand displays. These books are not placed in public libraries, nor listed in catalogues. They are kept in locked chests, beneath altar stones, behind ritual oaths, some bound in cracked leather, others copied by hand in looping ink. Some are blank at first glance, until the initiate learns to see what lies between the lines. Why keep a book hidden? The question floats in the stillness. It is not that the books themselves are dangerous. Paper and ink rarely are. But the truths they hint at, the riddles they preserve, and the rituals they describe, these could stir the mind in ways the world was not yet ready for. These were not books meant to be read. They were meant to be entered. In these texts, you would not find mere history. You would find geometry used not for measurement, but meditation. Tales of ancient brotherhoods, with tongues of silver, and eyes turned toward the stars. Prayers shaped like puzzles, and a belief that the universe in its deepest layers was built by the same hand that built the pyramids and placed the stars, a divine architect whose signature echoed in the golden ratio and the circles of sacred design. The Freemasons did not write all of these books. Some were inherited, passed down from long-forgotten schools of mystery, from scholars burned at the stake, from travelers who had touched lands the maps forgot. Others were compiled, fragments of hermetic wisdom, Kabbalistic diagrams, rituals whispered in Greece and Alexandria, myths transcribed by monks who dared too much. What bound them all was the silence around them, for to speak of these things was to invite suspicion. The church feared heresy, the crown feared disobedience, and so knowledge had to hide, not just in books, but in brothers, in memory, in metaphor. A symbol, after all, is a perfect hiding place, the square and compass etched so simply into lodge doors held within them an entire philosophy. That man must build himself with order and discipline, but also navigate with spirit and imagination. The point within the circle, the all-seeing eye, the pillars of Boaz and Jachin, each a sentence from a book long buried, long protected. Some rumors say the Freemasons guarded specific forbidden texts, ones lost to time or banned by authority. Scrolls that spoke of pre-flood civilizations, gospels that never entered the Bible, instructions for the transformation of the soul through symbol and light. Others say these books were never literal at all, that the true forbidden book was the initiate's own consciousness, unfolding page by page through ritual, dream, and journey. Both may be true. There is a quiet kind of power in guarding, a secret not to dominate others, but to protect the unready. The Masons did not, for the most part, hoard their knowledge for pride. They hid it like one hides fire in the cold, not to withhold it, but to keep it a live dot, and so the lodge beneath the stars endured, through revolutions and empires, through wars of faith and reason, through centuries of suspicion and myth. It endured. Because some knowledge is not meant to be shouted. It is meant to be remembered in stillness, to be passed not from teacher to student, but from soul to soul. When the hour is right and the stars are aligned. Tonight, as you rest, imagine you are there. The room is quiet. The air is thick with beeswax and cedar. A page turns, not loudly, but like a breath between thoughts. You do not understand the words, not yet, but something in you knows they are familiar. You've seen this symbol before, in a dream you forgot. You've heard this phrase once, whispered in a place you can't recall. The light dims. The stars above turn slowly, and you feel gently that the first secret is not in the book. It is that the book exists at all. The tools of the Freemason are often mistaken for their purpose. The chisel, the trowel, the level, yes, these carved cathedrals and sanctuaries. But two instruments stood apart, the square to measure the earth, and the compass to draw the heavens. They were never just tools. They were reminders of boundaries seen and unseen, of circles that never close, of mysteries mapped in ink and symbol long before any stone was ever laid. Behind these symbols, hidden not in darkness but in elegance, lay the scrolls, texts whispered through centuries, preserved in silence and symbol never shouted. They were not always whole books, sometimes just fragments, a diagram drawn in haste and kept for lifetimes, a verse translated imperfectly from an older tongue, a letter never sent, but passed hand to hand beneath layers of code and trust. Question floats again. What kind of scrolls would a builder keep hidden? Not blueprints for palaces or tombs, but for the soul. We begin with Hermeticism, the teachings ascribed to the mythical Hermes Trismegistus, part God, part man, part echo. His words were said to carry the wisdom of Egypt, of stars and atoms, of the sacred relationship between the seen and unseen. Among his supposed writings, the divine Pimender, the emerald tablet, Asclepius, texts that do not instruct so much as illuminate. The phrase lingers, as above, so below. A compass opens, the heavens swing wide. These writings, though banned and burned through time, never vanished. They reappeared in the hands of alchemists, mystics, and those whose lodges echoed with the rites of memory. The Freemasons, with their reverence for symbol and structure, found in Hermetic scrolls a familiar shape. truth dressed in metaphor, geometry as revelation, instruction not in command but in contemplation. But the Hermetic texts were not alone. Others hid in the folds of history, most curiously, the books of Thoth, said to be penned by the Egyptian god of wisdom himself. These mythical books were rumored to contain the secrets of language, magic, the motion of the stars, and the will of the divine. Ancient writers warned of their danger. Whoever read the book of Thoth would know the speech of animals, the movement of celestial bodies, and even the will of the gods, but would also face ruin. A gift too bright for mortal hands. Were they real? Were they symbolic? Or both? In Masonic legend, such scrolls were not chased for power. They were contemplated in reverence, not to wield the secrets of creation, but to understand our place within it. You might wonder how any of these texts reached Europe's stonemasons at all. But the old world was full of travelers. Templar knights returning from the East, scholars carrying parchment from Moorish Spain, mystics fleeing the collapse of Constantinople. With them came scrolls, some sacred, some strange, written in Arabic, Greek, Syriac, Hebrew. Passed hand to hand, lodge to lodge. One might land in a cathedral town in France, another in a quiet Scottish glen, another in a dusty corner of Prague, or Venice, not catalogued, not copied widely, simply ... remembered. From these scrolls came diagrams of strange architecture, temples not of stone, but of symbol, stars arranged in sacred order, trees whose branches echoed divine hierarchies, mathematics whispered as prayer. Some of these scrolls evolved into rituals. They weren't read aloud, but performed, a drama of symbols, where the initiate played the role of the seeking soul. Each action a line from an unwritten book, each gesture a line of poetry from a scroll long lost. Others became ciphers, coded writings only visible to those who had been trained to see. Letters turned into numbers, symbols used as alphabet, a hidden language layered within the visible one. Even the scroll's material became symbolic: lambskin for purity, gold ink for divine thought, unrolled only in candlelight when the world was still. And then there were the cosmographic scrolls, maps not of land, but of the soul's journey, from base desire to divine awakening. They mirrored the stages of alchemical transformation, the path through the elements, the ascension from earth to ether. Each circle, each triangle, each spiral, a footstep toward something higher. To many, these scrolls were myths. To others, they were metaphors. But to those in the inner chambers of the lodge, they were something else. Reminders that truth was never singular, that wisdom was not inherited by birth, but by effort, and that sacred knowledge could not be possessed, only carried. For a time, one scroll in particular, though never confirmed, lingers in many Masonic legends. It had no title. Its cover was blank. Its content was said to shift with the reader's mind, showing different truths to different seekers. To one, a map. To another, a parable. To another, silence. Was it real? Perhaps not, but the idea of it is as powerful as any proof. Tonight you don't need to see these scrolls. You only need to feel them. Imagine running your fingers across. Ancient vellum, the ink slightly raised, the scent of cedar and age surrounding you. The words don't form sentences, not yet, but their shapes hum something in your memory, a pattern. a rhythm, a truth you once knew in some other lifetime, and as the compass closes gently in your mind, drawing that perfect, invisible circle, you understand the scroll was never behind the compass dot. It was the compass dot. There are libraries we can visit, stone buildings with tall shelves and soft echoes, where dust hangs in the light like memory. And then there are the ones we cannot. The libraries that exist only in rumor, in whispered recollection, or in the strange certainty that something was once there, and is now gone. This is the chapter of one such place. The Freemasons, it is said, preserved not merely knowledge, but a sanctuary for it, a grand library never listed on a map, never announced with fanfare, but carried from lodge to lodge like a sacred ember. Not a single location, but a hidden network. Not always made of brick and mortar, but sometimes of oaths and remembrance. It is called by many names in the margins of historical speculation: the silent archive, the invisible Athenaeum, the library without a name, but most simply, and often with reverence, it is known as the Grand Library that never was. It is said that within its unseen shelves lay books never published, scrolls never completed, text rescued from the flames of tyranny and the silence of time, Gnostic Gospels, Atlantean diagrams, books bound in script no modern scholar could name, some written in light glyphs, others in codes that shift like sand. This chapter is not about certainty. It is about the shape of a story that has survived in absence, a hollow space in our history that echoes, as all absences do, with possibility. Let us begin where many of these legends point, to the 17th and 18th centuries, the flourishing of speculative Freemasonry in Europe. As the Enlightenment stirred new questions and old truths cracked beneath the pressure of reason, certain lodges turned inward, seeking not only external progress, but inner preservation. In an age of revolutions, political, philosophical, scientific, what did they fear might be lost? The answer? Wisdom. Not information, which multiplies like vines, but wisdom, slow-growing, root-deep, inherited across generations. Wisdom that lives in the folds between theology and myth, science and symbol. And so, it is whispered the Grand Library was born, not constructed like a cathedral, but pieced together in secret. One volume kept in a chest in Vienna, another hidden behind a false panel in Edinburgh, a scroll rolled tight and buried beneath an altar in Marseille, a ciphered manuscript kept within the lining of a satchel carried across the Alps. These weren't just books. They were fragments of memory. The library was not meant to be visited all at once, but remembered slowly in pieces, passed from one guardian to the next. Its shelves invisible, its index written only in trust. What kinds of books did it hold? Some speak of texts from ancient Alexandria, pages rescued before Caesar's fires consumed the greatest library the world ever knew. Others describe documents taken from the Knights Templar at the time of their arrest, sacred instructions, rituals of light, records of contact with Eastern mystics. There are tales of books once belonging to Moorish scholars in Spain, smuggled out before the Inquisition found them. Books that described the stars not as distant fires, but as living minds. One such book is said to be the Lexicon of Flame, a tome written in mirrored script and sealed in copper. Its pages glowed faintly in darkness, and no ink was visible in daylight. Another the map of the inner temple, a scroll that claimed to show not a building, but the architecture of human consciousness. Not metaphorically, but literally, chambers of thought, stairwells of memory, windows of revelation. And always the rumors returned to one idea, that this grand library was not just a vault for strange books. It was a living system of memory. Each lodge a cell, each Mason a page. They memorized text too dangerous to write, encoded teachings within ritual, buried prayers in gesture and symbol. The square and compass became the punctuation of a sentence lost to time. The tracing board, a bookshelf of the subconscious. The initiate's path, a pilgrimage through forgotten volumes. But if this library existed, why was it hidden? Not out of greed, not for power, but because many of these books had been banned, not for their lies, but for their truths. Truths that questioned hierarchy, that taught divinity as internal. Truths that said each human carried a spark of something eternal. Truths that saw no separation between the mystic and the scientist, the philosopher and the builder. Such truths threatened institutions built on obedience, not understanding. And so they were erased, but not completely, for the Grand Library was made of those things that cannot be fully erased, symbols, dreams, myths, the kind of knowledge that survives in lullabies, in architectural proportions, in the unspoken feeling that there is something more beneath the visible world. And now, centuries later, it still lingers, in rumors shared in candlelight, in diagrams, tucked into forgotten drawers, in the knowing look between two strangers who recognize a symbol carved into stone. Perhaps the library never truly existed, at least not as a single place, but its idea is real. And sometimes that is more powerful. Tonight, as you drift into rest, imagine you are standing before a grand wooden door. No handle, no keyhole, only a symbol carved at its center, the compass open, the square below. You touch it lightly, and the door opens silently inward. Before you lies a room with no end. Shelves spiral upward like trees. Staircases fold in impossible directions. Books breathe softly in the dark. You choose one. Its cover is blank. But when you open it, you see something familiar. A memory. A pattern, a phrase that feels like it was always waiting for you. And in that moment, you understand the Grand Library was never lost. It was simply waiting to be remembered. Within the quiet chambers of the lodge, where whispers ripple softly like a gentle breeze, lie secrets encoded not in grand proclamations, but in delicate puzzles, cipher manuscripts. These are books that do not speak plainly, but invite the reader into a dance of shadows and light, where meaning is hidden beneath layers, waiting to be gently uncovered by patient hands and keen eyes. A cipher is more than code. It is a language wrapped in metaphor, a veil woven of symbols, numbers, and silence. For the Freemasons, the cipher manuscripts were sacred relics, not only to protect their knowledge from the unready, but to transform the act of reading into an act of becoming. Imagine a book whose words shift like mist on a morning lake. Letters rearranged in spirals, geometric shapes replacing vowels, pages that seem blank until touched by candlelight or revealed by a specific pattern of tracing. To the untrained eye, these might appear as nonsense or ornament, but to the initiated, they sing the old song of hidden wisdom. The tradition of ciphers is ancient. From the whispered secrets of the Egyptian priesthoods to the coded manuscripts of Renaissance scholars, the art of concealment was born not of fear alone, but reverence. Some knowledge is too precious, too powerful, to be handed openly. It must be unlocked with patience and care, as if the mind itself is a lock and the cipher the key. Among the manuscripts believed to be hidden by the Freemasons, one name lingers like a half-remembered melody, the cipher of the 7 stars. This mysterious text, said to be bound in midnight blue leather, contains not only cryptic words but star charts folded into mandalas. The cipher weaves celestial navigation with spiritual journeying, a map for those who seek the hidden pathways between the stars and the soul. The process of deciphering such a manuscript is slow and reverent. It requires more than just a sharp intellect. It demands a heart attuned to nuance, a spirit open to paradox. The reader becomes an alchemist, transmuting confusion into insight, darkness into dawn. Beyond the celestial, many cipher manuscripts encoded the history and philosophy of the Freemasons themselves, their rites, their lineage, their hidden meanings. But this history was never straightforward. It was layered with symbols, parables, and secret numerologies. A date might correspond to a constellation. A name might fold into a geometric design. Every detail was a clue, and every clue a gateway. Reason for such complexity was not to obfuscate, but to invite a journey inward. To read a cipher manuscript was to embark on a pilgrimage through the self, a slow unveiling of truths that cannot be rushed or forced. Each puzzle solved opened a new door. Each symbol understood revealed a new horizon. Many cipher manuscripts were tied to the sacred geometry beloved by the Freemasons. Patterns like the flower of life, the Vesica Piscis, and the golden ratio were not mere decoration, but keys embedded within the text itself. These shapes echoed the architecture of the universe, a language that spoke both outward into the cosmos and inward into the human heart. And so, the manuscripts were more than books. They were living puzzles. They were mirrors and maps. They were sacred songs sung in silence. Throughout history, some of these manuscripts escaped the lodges, passed down quietly through families, or hidden in plain sight among public collections. Yet their true meanings often remained locked there, ciphers unbroken, their secrets sleeping beneath the surface. Tonight, as you rest, imagine yourself gently unfolding such a manuscript. The texture of the paper cool beneath your fingertips, the faint scent of ink and cedarwood filling the air. You trace a spiral pattern that seems to pulse softly with light. Letters shift and rearrange, revealing a phrase you half remember from a dream. A riddle begins to unfold, and as your eyes grow heavy, you sense a quiet truth. The greatest mysteries are not those that shout. They are those that whisper patiently, tenderly, waiting for the right time to be heard. In the gentle hush of twilight, as shadows lengthen and the world slows into stillness, there exists a quiet order of watchers, the guardians of the hidden word. These keepers are not warriors or conquerors, but humble custodians of secret wisdom, entrusted with the sacred task of preserving knowledge too delicate to be spoken aloud. The hidden word is a symbol whispered through Masonic lore, a sacred name, a secret truth, a phrase imbued with power and mystery. It is more than language. It is the breath of creation itself, a sound that echoes in the spaces between stars, in the quiet chambers of the soul. Guardianship is not possession. It is a vow to protect the sacred trust, to hold knowledge lightly and pass it gently from hand to hand, from heart to heart. They are the living links in a chain that stretches across centuries, across continents, binding past and future in a delicate thread of memory. These guardians were often chosen not for their strength, but for their character, their patience, their wisdom, their humility. They understood that the hidden word was not a weapon, but a key, not a treasure, but a responsibility. Through the veils of history, many names and faces remain unknown, cloaked in ritual and shadow. Yet their presence is felt in the steady rhythm of lodge ceremonies, in the careful preservation of manuscripts, in the silent exchange of symbols. Their vigilance is quiet but unyielding. The act of guarding was both sacred and practical. The hidden word was often concealed in layers of allegory and symbol, within rituals, within architecture, within the very design of the lodges themselves. It was a truth woven into the fabric of their world, waiting for the seeker's heart to recognize it. One legend tells of a guardian who held a scroll said to contain the original utterance, a single syllable, the primal sound of creation. This word, spoken once in a lost temple, was said to unlock understanding of the universe's deepest mysteries. Yet the guardian never revealed it, knowing that the word's power could be a flame that burns as much as it illuminates. The responsibility weighed heavily. Guardians faced a constant tension between secrecy and sharing. How much to reveal? When to speak? When to remain silent? Their answers were guided not by fear, but by love, a love for truth, for wisdom, for the fragile beauty of understanding. Guardianship also meant guiding initiates gently toward discovery, not by handing over answers, but by inviting questions. Through parables, symbols, rituals, they nurtured curiosity and respect. Each step was a lesson in patience and wonder. The hidden word was not static. It lived and breathed within the community, growing with each generation's insight. Guardians were its gardeners, tending the sacred seed, ensuring it took root in fertile minds. Tonight, as you settle into the quiet embrace of night, imagine the figure of the guardian, a quiet presence. Beside you, holding a lantern not to lead you blindly, but to light the path ahead softly. Their voice is a whisper, carrying a single word you cannot yet understand, but feel deep within. And as you drift toward sleep, you carry that word with you, not as a puzzle to solve, but as a gentle rhythm, a heartbeat connecting you to a lineage of seekers, keepers, and dreamers. The hidden word is not lost. It is simply waiting for you. Beneath the weight of centuries, beneath the stones and shadows of ancient Jerusalem, lies a story wrapped in mystery, the story of Solomon's temple, and the lost texts said to have been kept within its sacred walls. These texts, whispered through history and legend, are more than records. They are keys, gateways to a knowledge both divine and earthly, sacred and secret. King Solomon, the wise builder, whose name is spoken softly in Masonic lodges, is said to have commissioned writings that held the blueprint of creation, instructions for harmony, for balance, for the sacred geometry that shapes both temple and soul. These were texts that guided not only the construction of stone, but the architecture of spirit. The temple itself was more than a building. It was a living symbol, a mirror of the cosmos. Its walls echoed with chants, its chambers breathed with prayers, and within its inner sanctum the Holy of Holies were kept, scrolls so sacred that few ever glimpsed them. These were not mere documents, they were living wisdom, encoded in words and symbols, meant to be understood only by those initiated into the deepest mysteries. What became of these texts after the temple's destruction? The answer slips through the cracks of history like smoke through fingers. Some say they were lost to fire and ruin. Others whisper they were hidden away by a secret brotherhood, the earliest ancestors of the Freemasons, who vowed to protect them from desecration. In these lost texts were said to lie the secrets of sacred measurement, the divine proportion that governs the harmony of the universe, the mathematical rhythm that binds earth to sky, stone to spirit. The temple's design was no accident, but a deliberate reflection of celestial order. Masonic ritual often alludes to this heritage. The tools of the Mason, the square, the compass, the plumb line, are symbols drawn directly from the temples. Architecture. They are reminders not only of craftsmanship, but of a spiritual quest, an inner building of character and soul. Among the texts rumored to have survived are manuscripts describing the Ark of the Covenant, itself shrouded in mystery and legend. Some writings hinted at its role not merely as a sacred chest, but as a vessel of divine knowledge, capable of illuminating truth and judgment. Yet the loss of the texts was not the end, but a beginning, a call to memory and preservation. The Freemasons took upon themselves the mantle of this sacred task, weaving fragments of Solomon's wisdom into their rituals, their symbols, their secret teachings. They became the guardians of a legacy that reaches back to the dawn of sacred architecture. The very idea of these lost texts invites us into a quiet reflection. What is lost, what is hidden, and what remains to be discovered within ourselves? The temple's destruction mirrors our own moments of loss and renewal, and the texts remind us that sacred knowledge is often not a thing to possess, but a path to follow. As night deepens and your breathing slows, imagine standing before the ancient gates of Solomon's temple. Feel the weight of history, the pulse of sacred geometry beneath your feet. Hear the soft rustle of scrolls, the whisper of prayers that have traveled through time, and in the stillness know that the lost texts are not truly lost. They live within the silent chambers of your mind, waiting for you to build your own temple, stone by stone, word by word, breath by breath. In the soft glow of candlelight, where shadows flicker and dance, the alchemical codices whisper their ancient secrets, texts folded in mystery and transformation, much like the soul itself. These are books not just of substances and metals, but of change, of the delicate art of turning the base into the sublime, the earthly into the divine. The Freemasons, whose rituals often echo the symbolism of creation and renewal, held the alchemical tradition close. Within their hidden collections were codices that spoke of the philosopher's stone, not merely as a mystical object, but as a metaphor for inner awakening, the refinement of spirit through trial and patience. These codices were written in cipher and symbol, and languages layered with meaning. A color might represent a stage of transformation. A diagram might illustrate not just chemical reactions, but states of consciousness. The pages often shimmered with delicate inks, some glowing faintly in moonlight, hinting at the interplay between seen and unseen worlds, alchemical texts traced a journey one that began in darkness, in chaos in the prima materia, and moved toward light, order, and perfection. This was not just the quest of turning lead into gold, but the alchemy of the self. The Freemasons saw in these writings a mirror for their own rights, a path from ignorance to enlightenment. The alchemical tradition is as old as the desert winds that carried early Hermetic wisdom from Egypt to the Mediterranean, mingling with Greek philosophy and later medieval thought. The codices preserved within Masonic circles were often translations, commentaries, or hidden copies of these venerable texts. Some of the most mysterious among them are the Ripley Scrolls, lavishly illustrated manuscripts that combine poetry and science, mysticism, and practical knowledge. Named after the English alchemist George Ripley, these scrolls were believed to contain the recipe for the philosopher's stone and much more. Their symbolism is dense, layered, a riddle wrapped in imagery. But why did the Freemasons guard these codices? Because alchemy's power was double-edged. It promised transformation, yes, but also demanded patience, discipline, and respect for nature's laws. Its knowledge was not meant for the reckless or impatient. It was sacred trust. These codices also held warnings against hubris, against shortcuts, against misunderstanding. The alchemical journey is slow, deliberate, a dance with time itself. In Masonic ritual, this alchemical wisdom is woven into symbols: the melting pot, the furnace, the phoenix rising from ashes. Each is a metaphor for the initiate's path, the sacred work of inner refinement. Tonight, as you ease into the quiet folds of night, picture yourself leafing through one of these ancient codices. Feel the texture of vellum. Hear the faint rustle of turning pages. See the glowing symbols, the poetic verses that hint at mysteries beyond words. Let the alchemical whispers settle gently in your mind. Know that transformation is possible, not just in gold or matter, but within your own heart and spirit. And as your eyelids grow heavy, carry this gentle truth with you. Every night is an alchemical chamber, where dreams transmute your thoughts, where sleep turns the ordinary into the extraordinary. The secrets of the codices are not hidden. They are waiting, softly, quietly, to be discovered. There are books meant to be read by the light of day, clean, ordered, and safe in their logic. And then there are those meant to be opened in silence, beneath the low flicker of firelight, where the heart slows and the world softens. Books of ritual, not merely instruction manuals, but living scripts. Books that are not read, but enacted, whispered. Remember that the Freemasons were, at their heart, ritualists. Their ceremonies were not for show, but for transformation, and within these ceremonies lay clues, fragments of forgotten rites, echoes of older worlds, rituals drawn from traditions that once stood boldly and publicly, but had since been forbidden, banished, or buried. To understand these rituals is to understand the books that held them, often called ritual manuscripts. Books of light, or, in some traditions, books of shadows. These were never published or printed in wide circulation. They passed from hand to hand, guarded by those entrusted to memory, sealed with silent vows, some written in cipher, others without words at all, pages filled only with symbols, diagrams, or instructions so veiled they made sense only within the inner circle of the lodge. Each ritual manuscript had two halves. The outer layer, choreography of gesture and phrase. The inner layer, a mirror of meaning revealed only through experience. Take, for example, the ritual of the veiled light, a ceremony rumored to have originated from early Scottish lodges and passed secretly through generations. Its corresponding book was said to contain no traditional language. Instead, it held sketches, a lantern, a winding staircase, a hand reaching for a key. Each image was a metaphor for a spiritual transformation. The initiate did not read the book in the usual sense. They became it. Other rituals, more daring still, hinted at truths considered too dangerous for public faith or empire. They spoke of the divine within, not in temple or crown, but in the human being. They honored wisdom not through obedience, but through seeking. And they often centered on feminine energies, forgotten deities, lost gospels, or astrological alignments that the official orders of religion and state had long forbidden. To possess such books in certain centuries was to risk one's name, or even one's life. This is why the Freemasons hid them, not out of fear, but out of love, not from selfishness, but from a deep sense of timing, that some knowledge should only be revealed when the soul is ready to receive it. The rituals described in these books were rarely static. They evolved, changed with each guardian. Some Masonic scholars referred to them not as rites, but as living texts, oral scriptures written in the body, in the mind, in movement and silence. One manuscript, simply called The Steps of the Hollow Temple, survives in legend. It was said to be a small, square book bound in indigo cloth, its pages thin as breath. On each page a single action: stand in shadow, turn to the unseen pillar, speak what cannot be spoken. It made no sense unless one entered the ritual space, unless one became the book. Other forbidden rituals described initiatory journeys through symbolic death and rebirth, rites that mirrored the myth of Osiris, the descent of Inanna, the passage through darkness before light. These were deeply transformative experiences, designed to dissolve the ego, awaken inner sight, and rebind the soul to the eternal. To a stranger, such books would seem abstract, perhaps even nonsensical. But to the initiated, they were more than ink. They were maps to the soul, to memory, to the eternal architecture hidden within all things. Some believe fragments of these books survive today, not in museums or libraries, but in private collections, in attics, in boxes sealed with care. Others may live on in oral form, passed quietly through ritual reenactments in Masonic lodges, still echoing with candlelight. Many, perhaps most, are lost, not to fire but to forgetting. Still, their energy remains. We feel it in the old symbols, in the careful silence that falls at the start of a ceremony, in the echo of footsteps on stone floors, in the curve of a compass, or the whisper of an oath that no longer needs to be spoken aloud. Tonight, as you sink deeper into sleep, imagine holding one of these ritual books in your hands, its cover worn soft with age, its pages warm, humming with memory. You don't understand the script, not yet, but something in your chest stirs. You close your eyes and remember something you never read, but somehow always knew. The ritual does not begin with words. It begins with stillness, with breath, with you. Beneath the great dome of St. Peter's Basilica, amid the gold and marble and centuries of liturgical rhythm, lies a silence thicker than any sermon, a silence guarded by walls, by keys, by centuries of careful erasure. In the shadows behind, faith and empire, beneath the robes and rituals, there are books the world forgot. And there are those who remember. The Vatican Library, vast, ancient, labyrinthine, is said to contain thousands of texts never read by the public. Some are too fragile, some too sacred, and others perhaps too dangerous. There have long been whispered rumors that among these hidden volumes are books deemed heretical, not because they were false, but because they told a different truth. Gospels never canonized, philosophies that blurred the line between human and divine. Accounts of early sects who believed salvation lay not in obedience, but in knowledge and gnosis. In the quiet corners of the Masonic tradition, these rumors are not dismissed, they are honored. For some believe that the Freemasons, in their earliest speculative lodges, came into possession of certain fragments, copies, translations, summaries, or oral renditions of these forbidden texts. A few were smuggled during wars. Others were passed hand to hand through networks of monks and mystics who knew how to protect what must be preserved. And while the Vatican had its reasons for secrecy, reasons born of preservation, of fear, of control, the Masons held a different creed. That truth, however strange, deserves to breathe. Among the most whispered of these texts is the Gospel of Mary Magdalene. Lost for centuries, fragments of it were discovered in the late 19th century. It speaks in gentle, revolutionary tones of a woman who understood the teachings of the Christ more deeply than any disciple, of inner light, of divine unity, of a wisdom silenced not by God but by men. Why would a gospel like this be hidden? Not because it lacked beauty, but because it threatened order. If the divine could be found within, what need for an empire to mediate? If truth lay in silence and spirit, what need for loud decrees and doctrine? The Freemasons, with their deep reverence for inner awakening, saw in texts like these a mirror to their own rituals. They didn't claim to own the truth, only to protect the path to it that another forbidden book rumored to have passed through. Hidden Hands is the Gospel of Thomas. It speaks in riddles and paradoxes, as if wisdom itself were a flame only glimpsed through smoke. Split a piece of wood, and I am there. The kingdom is within you and all around you. Lines like cones, not answers but invitations. Such words were dangerous to rigid hierarchy. They pointed not to churches, but to consciousness, not to obedience, but to awakening. It is said that copies of these Gospels, and others like them, were once translated by early Freemasons, not for public release, but for private meditation, hidden in lodge archives, encrypted in ritual language, embedded in tracing boards and initiation allegories. They were not studied to defy religion, but to deepen spirit. The tension between the church and the lodge is a long one, at times hostile, at times curious, always cautious. The Vatican, by its nature, seeks to define, to canonize, to protect doctrine. The Freemasons, by contrast, embrace a tradition of personal interpretation, inner development, the symbolic journey. One system favors the shepherd and the flock, the other the solitary seeker beneath the stars, and yet both share common roots. Both echo ancient truths. Both carry shadows of lost worlds, and perhaps even the same forbidden books. Among Masonic lore, There are hints that during the chaos of war, especially during Napoleon's campaigns, certain volumes were lifted from monastery vaults and libraries and discreetly carried into private hands. These hands, in turn, passed them to initiates, philosophers, scholars cloaked in secrecy, not stolen, not destroyed, but preserved in silence. Some even believe that, beneath the Vatican itself in the deepest vaults, lie not only Christian writings, but scrolls from Babylon, from Egypt, from pre-Christian mystery schools, scrolls that once aligned more with Masonic philosophy than with dogma. The Book of Enoch, long rejected by most churches, was beloved by early mystics. It speaks of angels who fell, of watchers who taught, forbidden arts to humans, of visions too vast for simple theology. The Freemasons respected such visions, not for their literal truth, but for their metaphorical power. The idea that humanity was once taught and then left to remember. Tonight, as the moon rises and your eyes grow heavy, consider the veil, not one of deception, but of timing. A veil drawn not to hide forever, but to delay. Until the soul is ready to see Dot, imagine standing in a long hallway beneath the Vatican, ancient wood shelves on either side, scrolls and tomes bound in silence. A gloved hand reaches up, takes down a slim volume, its title long erased. But as you open the first page, you feel a warmth, not of flame, but of memory, not of reading, but of recognition. Somewhere within those pages is a truth that once stirred in you long ago. Before names, before doctrines, before fear, the veil lifts softly. And you are not afraid. They were called builders, but they built more than stone. Their cathedrals touched the sky not just with height, but with meaning. Every line, every arch, every column whispered a secret. They were not constructing monuments to power, but temples to truth, shaped with silence, aligned to the stars, measured not only in cubits, but in reverence. Dot, and behind every grand structure, there was a blueprint. Dot, not the kind marked in ink and scale, but a living, sacred design, a pattern handed down through time, cloaked in metaphor, carried in scrolls and minds and memory. A book, some say, known only by its symbols, encoded not in words, but in proportion, rhythm, and light. Dot, it is this blueprint the Freemasons revered, though their outer work was visible, stone laid upon stone. Their inner work was guided by something deeper, the belief that all of creation followed a hidden order. Geometry to them was not mere math. It was divine revelation. The triangle, the circle, the golden ratio, these were not abstractions. They were sacred echoes of how the universe was built. And so the blueprint was more than a plan. It was a mirror of the cosmos, a reflection of how spirit becomes matter, how chaos becomes harmony, how the unseen becomes seen. Dot in Masonic lore, this idea is preserved in the concept of the great architect of the universe, not a god defined by dogma, but a master designer shaping reality with beauty and precision. To understand the blueprint was to understand the divine mind. To follow it, to align one's life with its silent proportions, was to build not just cathedrals, but character. There are whispers of a manuscript known among certain Masonic circles as the pattern of the master builder, a codex said to contain symbolic floor plans of mythical temples, not for physical construction, but for spiritual assembly. Each chamber represented a stage of awakening. each corridor a passage between fear and understanding. Its pages were laced with golden ink, forming spirals, stars, and keys that could only be read in candlelight. Or dream light dot, was it real? Perhaps, or perhaps it never needed to be. For the blueprint it described lived already in ritual symbol in the act of building itself. Consider the compass and square, the most famous Masonic emblem. One draws the infinite. The other measures the real. Together they form the bridge between heaven and earth. The blueprint lives within that symbol, quietly, perfectly, like breath in the lungs of the world. Freemasonry's oldest legends speak of Hiram Abiff, the master builder of Solomon's Temple. He is less a man than a mythic guide, one who holds the secrets of sacred construction, not only of buildings, but of the inner temple, the one no enemy can destroy. Through his story, and through countless rituals reenacted in hushed lodges, across the centuries the blueprint is remembered, not through instruction but through experience, step by step, stone by stone, word by sacred word. Some say the original blueprint, the divine plan, was hidden when Solomon's Temple fell, that it was encoded into sacred texts now long lost, that only fragments remain hidden within. Ancient diagrams beneath symbols carved into forgotten cathedrals, within stained glass windows that cast more than light. The Book of the Builder, a term found in speculative Masonic writings, may have been metaphor for this lost manuscript. It was not a single book, but a constellation of ideas, gathered, scattered, preserved in memory and ritual. Those who guarded this knowledge did not do so out of pride or secrecy. They did it with care, as one might protect a fragile flame from the wind. For to misuse the blueprint, to build without understanding, could lead not to temples, but to towers destined to fall. Tonight, as you drift gently into sleep, imagine yourself tracing that blueprint with your fingertips. The lines are soft, glowing faintly beneath your touch. You don't yet know what the structure is, but something in you recognizes the pattern. It feels like truth, not loud, not urgent, but still and complete, like a circle drawn by a steady hand. You are not just reading the blueprint. You are remembering it, and perhaps, as you rest, you are also building. Not with bricks, but with breath, not with tools, but with intention. Stone by stone, thought by thought, you are becoming your own temple. It was said to be carved in green stone, smooth as water, radiant as fire, a tablet no larger than a hand, yet containing all the knowledge of the heavens and the earth. Its words, etched in ancient characters, whispered through time in every age of mystery, as above, so below. The Emerald Tablet, or Tabula Smaragdina, is one of the most legendary and enigmatic writings in all of esoteric tradition. It is brief, scarcely more than a page, and yet, to those who seek the sacred pattern of the universe, it is a blueprint, a riddle, and a revelation. The Freemasons, who honored the sacred in form and function alike, revered this tiny text not for its length, but for its layers. Like a well-built temple, it hides doorways in its symmetry, staircases in its silence, though its origin is clouded. In myth, many ascribe it to Hermes Trismegistus, the mythical sage who was part Greek god, part Egyptian priest, part whisper of something older still. Hermes, known in Egypt as Thoth, was said to have written many books, but the Emerald Tablet was his most perfect, a text not made by hands, but revealed, not written with ink, but burned into stone by the fire of understanding. The lines of the Tzu fine tablets shimmer with paradox. That which is below is like that which is above, and that which is above is like that which is below, to perform the miracle of the one thing. To the outsider, such words may seem poetic, even obscure, but to the Masonic initiate, trained in the reading of symbol, the turning of metaphor, they resonate like chimes in a sacred hall. They echo the Masonic belief in correspondence, that the cosmos is not something separate, but reflected in the architecture of the world and in the chambers of the self. The Emerald Tablet teaches that all things are one, that transformation is eternal, and that the material and the spiritual are mirrors of one another. This was the essence of alchemy, not the crude pursuit of gold, but the refinement of being, turning base lead into radiant essence, turning ignorance into wisdom, turning man into something more. The Freemasons were drawn to this idea. Their lodges, their rituals, their symbols, all echoed with Hermetic truths. They built with the understanding that every structure was a reflection. A temple mirrored a soul, a lodge mirrored the cosmos. And somewhere in the sacred geometry of it all was the truth. Some believe that early Masonic scholars, particularly those influenced by the Rosicrucian and alchemical traditions, preserved rare commentaries on the Emerald Tablet, small, handwritten treatises hidden within lodge archives, passed from master to apprentice with great care. These books were never publicly acknowledged, but within them may have been interpretations of the tablet's famous lines, decoded through diagrams, sacred numbers, and initiatory metaphor. One such commentary, whispered about in the margins of esoteric history, was titled The Mirror of the Green Flame. Said to contain both Masonic and Hermetic commentary, it described how the tablet's teachings aligned with degrees of initiation, with sacred architecture, and with the transformative journey of the initiate. It explained, line by line, the process of inner alchemy, how the work of the soul mirrored the refinement of nature, how meditation aligned with matter, how silence could refine spirit as fire refines metal. It taught that the tablet's words were not to be understood quickly, but to be lived slowly. Separate the earth from the fire, one line commands. To the philosopher, it is chemistry. To the initiate, it is clarity. To the soul, it is awakening. In this way, the Emerald Tablet became not a relic, but a ritual, each reading a step, each step a transformation, each transformation a building block in the temple of the self. And so within the deeper chambers of Freemasonry, the Emerald Tablet lived on, not always as a physical object, but as a principle. Its truth was folded into Masonic teachings, the balance of light and dark, the pursuit of knowledge, the building of self in harmony with the divine. Some believe that within the tracing boards of certain lodges, elaborate, symbolic illustrations used for Masonic instruction, lies an encoded version of the Emerald Tablet's wisdom, not in words, but in structure, a sun and moon above, a square and circle below, a pillar that rises between them like a spine of the universe. Each line, each symbol, a silent echo of as above, so below. Tonight, as your breathing deepens and your body softens into stillness, imagine yourself holding the Emerald Tablet in your palm. It is cool, smooth, and faintly glowing. The words are unfamiliar, and yet you understand them, not with the mind, but with something older, a knowing that does not require translation. You turn the tablet slowly. Light dances across its surface, and for a moment you see everything: stars and atoms, temples and trees, your breath, the universe, aligned. The tablet does not promise answers. It offers mirrors, and in this stillness, in this night, you see clearly. You are both the builder and the blueprint. You are both above and below. You are the tablet. You are the text. Some truths are not meant to be spoken aloud. They live in silence, in shadows, in pauses between breath and thought. The silent gospel, a phrase that hums like a secret melody through Masonic whispers, is one such truth. Not a book in the ordinary sense, but a tradition of hidden meaning woven through forgotten texts and whispered rites. It is said that long ago, when the early Christian world was young and fractured, a gospel was written, not with ink, but in silence. A gospel of gesture, symbol, and inner knowing, its words unsaid, its teachings unspoken, yet its message, vast, accessible only to those who listened with their hearts. The Freemasons, who cherished the balance between light and shadow, word and silence, found in this gospel a reflection of their own quest. A quest not just for knowledge, but for wisdom beyond words. Unlike the canonical Gospels, which tell their stories openly, the silent gospel was said to exist in the spaces between lines, in pauses of ritual, in the language of symbols, in the dance of flame and shadow on lodge walls. Historians debate the existence of such a text, but among initiates it is considered less a literal manuscript and more a living practice. A reminder that some mysteries are held in the stillness between speech, that the deepest truths are not shouted, but felt. Whispers tell of a codex once held by a secretive brotherhood of scribes, not monks, not priests, but guardians of the unsaid. This codex, written in disappearing ink and encrypted calligraphy, was rumored to vanish when read aloud, leaving only the faintest echo of meaning behind. Freemasonry's own rituals embody this paradox of silence and revelation. The sacred handshake, the whispered word, the veiled gesture, all communicate a language beyond the page. Each is a cipher, a key, a testament to the power of what remains unspoken. The silent gospel challenges the notion that truth must be articulated to be known. It suggests that some wisdom is too delicate for the harsh light of public scrutiny, that silence itself can be a form of knowledge, a sacred breath held between heartbeats. Within certain Masonic lodges, initiates are taught to embrace this silence, to listen not only to words, but to the quiet spaces that give them meaning, to feel the rhythm beneath the spoken, the pulse behind the ritual. This teaching echoes ancient mystical traditions, from the Sufi's whirling dance, to the Taoist's silent contemplation, to the Zen master's pause before enlightenment, all pointing toward a truth beyond language, a knowing that flows like a river beneath the frozen surface of speech. The silent gospel's very elusiveness became its protection. Too fragile for open debate, too profound for casual reading, it thrived in oral tradition, in secret ceremonies, in the untranslatable spaces of human experience. Some suggest that fragments of this gospel survive in early Christian mysticism, in apocryphal texts, and in the allegories of the alchemists. Others find its echoes in the quiet solemnity of Masonic meditation, where words fall away and something deeper stirs. Tonight, as your mind softens and your body surrenders to the gentle pull of sleep, imagine yourself in a dimly lit lodge room. The flicker of candles casts shadows that move like whispers across ancient stone. You sit quietly, breathing slowly, sensing the unsaid language that fills the space between brothers. No words are spoken, no text is read, only silence, only presence. And in that silence the silent gospel speaks, not in voices, but in the stillness of knowing, not in letters, but in the quiet opening of the soul. The deepest truths often dwell in silence. Tonight, as you drift beyond waking, carry that silence with you, a sacred space where wisdom sleeps, waiting to be heard in dreams. It begins, as many of these stories do, with a whisper, a tale of a library not listed on any map, whose door cannot be opened by key or by hand, but only by knowing. The Freemasons have long been linked to hidden knowledge, but some say the greatest treasure they protected was not a book or a ritual. It was a cipher. A cipher not for a single document, but for an entire library that no longer exists. At least not in one place. This lost library, if it ever truly existed, was not made of grand marble halls or gilded archives. Its volumes were scattered, some in old trunks, others sewn into linings of coats, a few carved into walls or etched into the margins of ritual books. And yet they were all connected by a code, the cipher of the lost library, as it has come to be called by those who chase such secrets, was said to be a key, not to a physical door, but to a map of meaning, a pattern hidden across centuries, across languages and symbols and songs. To understand, it was to begin gathering the fragments of the forbidden books, to bring the lost volumes of the past into harmony again. According to speculative Masonic legends, this cipher was not discovered, but assembled. Its roots stretch back to ancient Alexandria, to Babylonian temples, to the Jewish Kabbalists, who saw letters not as symbols, but as living sparks of the divine. Each generation of seekers added a layer, a translation, a clue. One fragment was said to be inscribed on a copper plate found beneath a ruined chapel in the south of France. Another on a parchment hidden inside the spine of a tattered alchemical grimoire. Others lived only in memory, passed from initiate to initiate, embedded within Masonic ritual. Some believed the cipher could be deciphered only by combining three elements: symbol, sound, and number, a triangle of understanding, a trinity of perception. The symbols were drawn from sacred geometry, the spiral, the Vesica Piscis, the five-pointed star. The sounds came from chants and phonetic fragments buried in prayers, and the numbers echoed across traditions: -3, 7, 12, 33, each charged with layers of metaphysical significance. Together, these formed a kind of invisible language, readable only to those trained to feel meaning beneath the surface. The cipher itself was rumored to be structured in 7 levels, each one unlocking a deeper layer of comprehension. The first level revealed the location of scattered texts, not in geography but in ritual context, where the text might arise during a ceremony, what gesture might summon its metaphor. The second level revealed themes: transformation, duality, the union of opposites. The third, tones and vibrations, aligning with the frequency of the words. as if meaning resonated in pitch dot, and beyond that, deeper still, were levels that mapped the human body, the cosmic clock, the architecture of sacred space. The final level was not spoken of, only hinted at, a silence so complete, so luminous, that to name it would be to shatter it. The Freemasons did not all claim to understand the cipher. Even among the initiated, few reached beyond the first or second layer. It was not a puzzle to be solved in a night. It was a lifetime's meditation. Some say that high-ranking members of certain esoteric Masonic rites possessed fragments of the cipher encoded into tracing boards, into floor patterns of old lodge rooms, or in the ceremonial tools passed down through generations. Others believe the cipher was never written at all, that it was a concept, not a code, that its real power was in the act of seeking, the sharpening of perception, the quieting of the mind, the awakening of symbolic intelligence. Because once the world is seen through that lens, everything becomes the library, a carving in a cathedral, a line from a forgotten poem, the alignment of stars on a winter solstice night dot. Each becomes a page, each becomes a message, and the cipher? It is not what reveals the library. It is what reminds you that you are already in it, tonight as your eyes grow heavy. Imagine standing in the threshold of that library. You do not see bookshelves or walls. Instead, you see connections, constellations of meaning drifting slowly before you, like lanterns floating through space. A number glows on the left, a symbol hums softly to the right. Somewhere distant but familiar you hear a phrase spoken, in a language you don't know and yet deeply understand. You take a breath. You turn the page of a book that isn't there, and with closed eyes, you begin to read dot. You are not searching anymore. You are remembering dot in the quiet corners of history. Some laws were never meant for the public square. They were not written for kings, nor drafted for the courts. They were inscribed with care, not on stone or parchment alone, but into memory, passed quietly through handshakes and vows, protected not by locks, but by loyalty. These were the secret constitutions of Freemasonry. Most know of the Anderson Constitutions, published in 1723, a document that offered the world its first real glimpse into the formal rules and ideals of the craft. It spoke of morality, fraternity, and the belief in a supreme architect, a God above all sects, all names. It laid out the structure of lodges, the qualifications of a Mason, and the duties of brotherhood. But what came before, and what was kept after, just out of sight? Among those who study the esoteric heart of Freemasonry, there are murmurs of older, hidden constitutions, ones never printed, never made public, but handwritten, carefully encoded, and shielded within the innermost chambers of the order. These secret texts, it is said, were not concerned with governance or meeting minutes. They were philosophical treatises, poetic laws, mystical blueprints. They described not how to run a lodge, but how to build the self. Not how to behave in public, but how to commune with the divine pattern that weaves through all things. Some believe the earliest versions were written by operative Masons in the medieval guilds, a blend of technical instruction and spiritual allegory. Others claim they descend from much older sources, Templar codes, Gnostic texts, even fragments of ancient initiatory laws passed down from the mystery schools of Egypt and Eleusis. They were often framed as oaths, not contracts, but inner commitments, a vow to seek truth, no matter how buried, a promise to protect the sacred flame of knowledge, even if it flickered in exile. One rumored version of the secret constitutions, referred to only in speculative accounts as the compact of the hidden, light contains lines like, "The builder does not shape stone alone, but shapes his silence. Let the tools of the hand reflect the tools of the heart. Measure not the man by his words, but by the harmony between his lines." Such words were never intended for the masses. They were reminders to the few to live as builders of wisdom, carriers of peace, servants of balance. The structure of these secret texts was often symbolic rather than literal. Instead of numbered clauses, they unfolded in degrees, steps, of internal development that mirrored the rituals of initiation. Each degree offered not a rule, but a lens, a way of seeing the world, a way of conducting oneself in quiet alignment with higher principles. And like the architecture of a great cathedral, these constitutions were designed to endure, because while paper can burn and laws can be rewritten, principles embedded in the soul cannot be erased. Some accounts suggest that each lodge kept its own variation, tailored to its traditions, its region, its lineage, written in cipher, copied by hand, buried in chests, encoded in ritual. Others believe that the secret constitutions were never written at all, that they were spoken once at initiation, and then carried forward by memory alone, not forgotten, but folded into action, into the way a Mason stood, listened, worked, and passed on the light. One phrase repeated often across oral accounts is, "What is kept secret must be lived in plain sight." It reminds us that secrecy is not always concealment. Sometimes it is protection, not of power, but of purity, of quiet truths too fragile for noisy worlds. In the age of empires and inquisitions, such protections were necessary. There were times when to speak freely of certain beliefs, that all faiths held light, that God was a geometric truth, that men and women alike carried the divine spark, was to risk exile or worse. So the Freemasons wrote sideways. They encoded laws in architecture. They etched constitutions into stained glass. They carved reminders into doorways and floor plans, messages not to be read, but felt. One Masonic tale speaks of a hidden clause, Article 0, found only in the secret texts. Its words, always recited in silence, are said to be this: "You are not the final builder, but build as if the whole world rests in your hands. You are not the first to seek the light, but seek it as though it were yours to find for all." There is no record of this clause, no page survives, and yet it is remembered. Because the secret laws that matter most are never written, they are lived. Tonight, as you sink into quiet, let that idea settle gently in your heart, that somewhere, deep within you, a sacred constitution already lives, not imposed, not memorized, but discovered slowly across a lifetime. It does not govern, it guides, it does not bind, it invites, and it speaks not in laws but in echoes. As your eyes begin to close, imagine an old book resting on a stone table in a hidden lodge, its pages soft with age, its cover worn smooth by countless hands. You open it, and there are no words, just light, just a sense that the law you seek is not out there, but in the quiet choices you make, and in the sacred lines you build, day by day, long before the pyramids rose from desert sands, before the scrolls of Alexandria caught flame, before the compass was drawn or the temple laid in stone, there was a story, whispered, half forgotten, sung only in the hush between waves. Atlantis, a word that shimmers like a mirage in the mind, a lost world, a vanished island, a civilization swallowed by the sea, and yet somehow not gone. Plato first gave it shape, a city of concentric rings, rich with knowledge, art, and sacred science. He claimed it fell not from war or fire, but from within, a quiet unraveling of balance, the result of pride rising higher than wisdom. But where did the story come from? Plato said it was told to him by Solon, passed from Egyptian priests, who had in turn preserved it from even older times, remnants of an age when gods and humans still walked side by side. And here, in this misty space between history and myth, the Freemasons listened closely. They did not seek Atlantis as a place to be found, but as a symbol to be understood, a parable of a golden age, and of what it means to lose it. Within certain esoteric branches of Freemasonry, Atlantis was not a city of stone, but of knowledge, a metaphorical temple of sacred wisdom, lost to the tides of time. Its books, it was said, were not entirely gone. They had drifted, scattered like pieces of a puzzle, waiting to be reassembled by those who remembered how to read in silence. These weren't books written in Greek or Latin, but in symbols, in numbers, in resonance. Some Masonic thinkers believe that fragments of Atlantean wisdom survive through hidden schools, in Egypt, in Sumer, in the stone circles of the Celts, in the geometries of temples built long after the waves rose. In this lineage, the Freemasons saw themselves not as originators, but as rememberers, stewards of a legacy older than any single lodge. One such manuscript, now lost, was referred to in whispers as the Codex Ager, said to have been written in spiraling script that looped like ocean currents. It contains diagrams of energy fields, celestial alignments, and sacred architecture designed to mirror the cosmos. It described cities built with vibration, stones moved not by force, but by sound. Many dismissed these tales as poetic invention, but for the Masons who studied such myths with symbolic eyes, the message was clear. Atlantis was not about a city in the sea. It was about a state of balance between inner and outer worlds, between power and humility, mind and heart. Its fall, too, was a warning, a sacred myth of forgetting, of what happens when the builder forgets the blueprint, when the initiate seeks power without patience, light without shadow. Throughout the centuries, there were rumors of books that claimed to carry Atlantean echoes. Some were written in cipher, disguised as alchemical texts or astrological commentaries. Others were said to be direct transcriptions of memory, dream journals, trance writings, visions recorded by mystics and passed quietly between esoteric circles. Whether these books were real or imagined did not matter. Their message endured. Atlantis was not a place to be discovered with ships. It was a continent within, and the lost books of Atlantis were not shelved in sunken halls, but in the soul's own archive, waiting to be remembered, one dream at a time. Freemasonic ritual is filled with quiet nods to this memory, the rising and falling columns, the emphasis on balance and sacred proportion. The idea that the initiate must fall into darkness before rising again into light, as Atlantis fell beneath the sea, so the soul must pass through silence to reclaim its voice. Some speculative Masonic writings even connect the myth of Atlantis to the fall of Solomon's temple. One a symbol of sacred knowledge lost to water, the other to fire. Together they represent a pattern that all great wisdom must fall in order to be remembered more truly. Atlantis, then, is not a cautionary tale. It is a call to build with intention, to remember the sacred in the mundane, to listen to the ancient harmony that still plays quietly beneath the noise of modern life. Tonight, as you rest, imagine the sea, vast, dark, and gently rising. Beneath its surface, you sense a shape, the outline of a great library, its shelves unbroken, its light still glowing faintly through the depths. You drift downward, slowly, weightless, peaceful. There are no words. Here only impressions, symbols carved in coral, manuscripts woven into sea grass, a memory in the shape of a circle, and somewhere you find a book, its covers made of polished shell, its pages shimmer with light that doesn't blind, but soothes. You open it, and there are no letters, only feelings, only truths you had long forgotten, now softly returning. Atlantis has not vanished. It sleeps beneath the surface of your thoughts. Its books were never destroyed. They were placed gently within you. In the heart of every sacred tradition, there exists a single, glimmering idea that transformation is not only possible, but destined, that the leaden weight of suffering can be transmuted, that the rough stone of the self can be shaped into something radiant. And at the center of this hope stands alchemy. To many, alchemy is a quaint science, an old dream, the attempt to turn lead into gold. But to the initiate, to the careful reader of forbidden books and symbolic texts, alchemy is not a science of matter, but of spirit. The Freemasons, guardians of metaphor and mystery, held alchemical wisdom not in their laboratories, but in their lodges. Their temples were not filled with bubbling flasks and crucibles, but with rituals that mirrored the inner work. And their texts, their most secret, most symbolic volumes, often echoed the golden arc of transformation. It is said that certain lodges kept copies of rare manuscripts like the Mutus Liber, the Silent Book, a wordless alchemical codex composed only of images. It depicts the entire process of transformation in a sequence of quiet, symbolic scenes. The sun and moon pouring their essence into vessels, a body resting beneath stars, a fire rising not to burn but to refine. And though the book never utters a single word, the message is clear to those who know how to see. The process of becoming begins in stillness. Another work, more whispered than seen, was known simply as the Red Codex. Bound in crimson velvet, it was said to be written in a language not of this world, a script that shimmered slightly when turned toward the sun and vanished when read too quickly. Its text described a sacred word, not a name, but a vibration, a tone that, when spoken with understanding, could awaken the hidden gold within the soul. This idea of the transformative word appears again and again in both alchemical and Masonic philosophy. In Masonic initiation, one seeks not only symbols, but the lost word, a name once known but now hidden, scattered among the ruins of time and memory. It is not a literal word, but a moment of resonance, a point at which intention, awareness, and spirit align. And when that word is found or remembered, the transformation begins. In alchemy, this is called the great work. In Freemasonry, it is the inner building of the temple. Both traditions speak of stages: nigredo, the blackening, the descent into chaos; albedo, the whitening, the purification of the soul; and rubedo, the reddening, the final stage of enlightenment, where the inner gold shines through. These stages are mirrored in the Masonic journey through degrees, from apprentice to fellowcraft to master. Each step is a fire, each fire a refinement. It is no accident that many alchemical texts were written in symbols, riddles, and poetic allegories, not to obscure, but to protect, to ensure that only those willing to walk the slow inner road would ever glimpse their meaning. The Freemasons understood this. Their own rituals, layered in gesture and metaphor, served as living texts, books not of paper, but of experience. Every step taken across the lodge floor was a line in the alchemical script. Every word whispered a spark. Among their more mystical writings, some lodges preserved a small tract known as Of Salt and Flame, attributed to an anonymous master in the late 17th century. It described the alchemical process not in chemicals, but in human terms: salt, the body, the form; mercury, the mind, fluid and seeking; sulfur, the soul, the fire, the will to transform. The text concluded with a single, haunting line: "The gold you seek is not in the furnace, it is in the one who lights it." Alchemy, then, is not about altering the world. It is about altering how we see it, not about changing matter, but understanding its meaning; not about creating wealth, but awakening what was hidden. The forbidden books of alchemy were not dangerous because of what they could make. They were dangerous because of what they could reveal. That power lies not in kings or churches, but in the clarified self, that the divine is not distant, but embedded in every drop of creation. Tonight, as you settle into sleep, imagine a fire glowing gently at the center of your chest. It does not burn, it warms, it beckons. You walk into a small circular chamber, its walls lined with books that pulse with quiet light. You take one from the shelf. Its title has no letters, only a symbol, a sun rising from a stone. You open the first page. There is no instruction, no spell, no recipe, only a sentence: "Become what you already are." And in the quiet of that chamber, in the warmth of that fire, you understand. The alchemical word that transforms is not spoken. It is lived. It is the way you walk, the way you wait, the way you rise again after darkness. You are the lead and the gold. You are the seeker and the fire. You are the book. And now you begin to read yourself anew. In the quiet darkness of the night, the sky unfolds like a vast ancient scroll, dotted with countless points of light, each a story whispered across time and space. For centuries, men have looked upward, seeking not only guidance but meaning, reading the stars as if they were letters of a hidden text. Among the Freemasons, this celestial fascination was more than curiosity. It was a sacred trust, a knowledge woven deep into their secret books, often called the astronomer's Bible. Unlike ordinary Bibles of faith, this was a book of cosmic laws, a compendium of stellar movements. sacred geometry, and the rhythm of celestial cycles that govern not only planets, but the flow of human destiny. The astronomer's Bible was said to contain charts and diagrams far older than modern astronomy, aligned with the cycles of the moon and sun, the shifting zodiac, and the mysterious precession of the equinoxes. Its pages guided the timing of rituals, the laying of stones, the design of temples, all tuned to the harmony of the heavens. Within its cryptic text were detailed instructions on how to align one's life with the stars, to read the language of the cosmos, and to find one's place in the great cosmic order. This was not superstition, but a deeply mathematical and philosophical tradition that traced back to the ancient mystery schools of Babylon, Egypt, and Greece. The book's origins are debated among historians. Some believe it was compiled in the 18th century, a synthesis of earlier astrological and astronomical knowledge. Others suspect its roots plunge deeper, preserved secretly through centuries by the order's most trusted scholars. Freemasonry's architectural marvels bear witness to this celestial wisdom, from the placement of columns in the Temple of Solomon to the intricate floor mosaics found in many lodges. Each pattern corresponds to star maps, planetary alignments, and sacred numbers. These designs were not mere decoration. They were maps to the heavens, inviting initiates to journey beyond the physical lodge into the vastness of the universe itself. One of the most fascinating aspects of the astronomer's Bible is its emphasis on cycles, the rise and fall of civilizations, the ebb and flow of personal transformation, all mirrored in the turning of the skies. It suggests a cosmic rhythm that shapes history, and that understanding these cycles was key to wisdom and balance. The book also explores the symbolic significance of planets and stars, the sun as the eternal light, the moon as the reflective soul, Mars as the fiery will, and Venus as the embodiment of harmony and love. These celestial archetypes guided not only ritual, but personal development within the Masonic path. Some forbidden passages describe secret astronomical phenomena, eclipses, comets, and rare alignments that were considered powerful moments for ritual work. The timing of these events was believed to open doorways to deeper knowledge, moments when the veil between the mundane and the divine thinned. To possess the astronomer's Bible was to hold a map not only of the heavens, but of the self. It taught that as the stars move, so do the hidden currents within us, emotions, intuitions, and the very flow of consciousness. In the silence of night, Freemasons would gather beneath the open sky, their gazes lifted upward in quiet contemplation, reading the ancient book with eyes both earthly and divine. Tonight, as you close your eyes, imagine yourself in a quiet stone courtyard, beneath a sky so vast it feels infinite. The stars shimmer softly, like the pages of an ancient book being turned by the wind. You see constellations tracing delicate lines, their shapes ancient and wise. The moon hangs low, a silent guardian. As you breathe slowly, you feel the pulse of the cosmos beneath your skin, a rhythm as old as time. In this moment, you hold the astronomer's Bible in your hands. Its pages glow faintly, filled with silent knowledge waiting to be heard. And as you drift deeper into rest, know that you are part of this great celestial dance, a note in the symphony of stars. The universe watches gently, and you, too, are part of its eternal story. There is a symbol that blooms quietly through the pages of hidden texts. its petals unfolding in ink and flame, the rose. Not merely a flower, but a cipher. Not a decoration, but a veil drawn over deep truths. To the initiated, the rose is a map, each layer a stage of awakening, each thorn a necessary trial, each petal a secret never spoken aloud. The Freemasons, whose rites draw from mystery schools far older than the name Mason itself, guarded many symbols, but none so quietly sacred as the rose. This chapter turns its gaze toward a collection of writings often referred to only in metaphor, the cipher of the rose. Not a single book, but a pattern hidden across many. It is said this cipher appears in Rosicrucian texts, alchemical diagrams, forgotten treatises passed through Masonic hands, always just out of reach. A language of shape, set, number, and silence. A cipher that does not speak, it blooms not to. Understand the cipher of the rose is to move beyond reading. It asks not for your mind alone, but your heart. The roots of this mystery run deep into Rosicrucian lore, that secretive, mystical brotherhood whose manifestos, in the 17th century, promised a hidden order of light, wisdom, and spiritual science. The Rosicrucians spoke of invisible temples, of knowledge passed in secrecy, of healings and transformations wrought not by force, but by grace. At the center of their symbol stood the rose, mounted on the cross, a union of opposites, life unfolding. From death, beauty emerging from structure, spirit from matter. Freemasonry and Rosicrucianism have long been entangled, not in hierarchy or control, but in shared purpose. They both sought the refinement of the self, the discovery of the divine in the world and in the Word. The cipher of the rose, it is said, was embedded within ritual texts that appeared outwardly plain, but which, when decoded, revealed a deeper architecture. It included sequences of numbers linked to planetary cycles, colors aligned with initiatory stages, references to rose gardens that were not places, but states of consciousness. Some legends speak of a small book, bound in deep burgundy leather, whose title was hidden behind a silver clasp in the shape of a 5-petaled rose. This was the silent petal, a Rosicrucian manuscript said to have passed through the hands of Masonic scholars in 18th century France. Its contents were encrypted in a mixture of Latin, Hebrew, and symbol. To read it required not only linguistic skill, but symbolic sight, the ability to see through the page. Within were passages that hinted at inner alchemy, using the rose as a metaphor, the bud representing potential, the opening petals, the unfolding of awareness, the scent, the soul's memory of truth, the thorns, the disciplines of the path, and the full bloom, the state of awakening, brief, eternal, and fragrant with knowing. Each Masonic tracing board, too, might be seen as holding the cipher of the rose if read with quiet eyes. The alignment of symbols, the path between pillars, the presence of veiled feminine archetypes, all echo the rose's unfolding spiral. In some initiatory traditions, the rose was considered the ultimate gift, not to be given, but to be recognized. It was the secret at the end of the journey, and the quiet companion at its beginning. This is why, in some rites, the initiate is given a symbolic rose, not to admire, but to contemplate. What does it teach? What does it conceal? The cipher of the rose, then, is not a code in the traditional sense. It is a pattern of perception. Once seen, It appears everywhere, in the shape of galaxies, in the unfolding of a child's laughter, in the symmetry of the human heart, in the pause between two breaths. Some believe that deep within certain forgotten Masonic lodges, those aligned with the more mystical branches, were books composed entirely of rose-aligned teachings, books like The Thorn and the Flame, The Garden Between Pillars, and Rosarium Philosophorum, all describing the spiritual journey through metaphor, layered like petals upon petals. Tonight, as you rest beneath your own quiet canopy of thought, imagine a single rose blooming slowly. In the dark, it opens not from sunlight, but from stillness. Its petals fall away, one by one, not with loss, but with revelation. In your hand, a small book. Its pages are soft, scented faintly of cedar and earth. There are no clear instructions, only illustrations, a path winding through a garden, a star blooming within a circle, a woman crowned in 7 veils. You close the book, but something lingers, a warmth, a fragrance, a knowing. The cipher of the rose has been activated, not on the page, but within you, and you understand as you drift softly into the night. This was never a mystery to be solved. It was a truth to be remembered. The rose was never hidden. It was simply waiting to bloom. Within the quiet chambers of ancient wisdom, there rests a presence often whispered about, but seldom seen, the veiled feminine. Not a mere symbol, nor a figure in myth alone. She is the hidden essence of balance, mystery and creation, cloaked in shadow and light. Her veil is not to conceal, but to invite, to beckon seekers beyond the obvious, into a deeper understanding of self and spirit. The Freemasons, despite their reputation as a brotherhood of men, have long held a complex relationship with the feminine, a relationship encoded not in words but in secret texts and ritual gestures. The forbidden books they guarded often contained veiled references to a sacred feminine principle, a force of wisdom, intuition, and transformation. This chapter draws back the veil, softly and reverently, to explore this elusive presence. In Masonic tradition, the feminine often appears as symbol and archetype. The pillars of Boaz and Jachin stand not only as structural supports, but as dual aspects of creation, echoing masculine and feminine energies. The mosaic pavement beneath the lodge floor, with its pattern of black and white, reflects the eternal dance of opposites, light and shadow, male and female, seen and unseen. Yet, beyond these symbols lies a deeper narrative, one woven through the pages of manuscripts that were kept from public view, books that speak in riddles of the hidden queen, the silent sister, the veiled goddess, whose presence completes the sacred work. In some forbidden volumes, she is called Sophia, the divine wisdom. In others, Isis, Mary Magdalene, or simply the Mother. She is the breath behind the word, the water beneath the stone, the fire that both burns and nurtures. Her veil is a metaphor for mystery itself, not absence, but presence unseen. She teaches that true knowledge comes not from domination or control, but from surrender and listening. Many of these texts emerge from alchemical, Rosicrucian, and early Hermetic traditions, intertwined with Freemasonry. They describe initiation not only as an outward journey, but as an inner dance with the feminine within. The initiate learns to honor intuition, to balance reason with feeling, and to embrace the shadows as part of the whole. The veiled feminine is often linked to the concept of silence, the quiet space where insight arises. In certain lodges, the ritual silence is itself a tribute to her presence, an acknowledgement of the sacred unknown. One of the most evocative of these forbiddens books is the Codex Nocturna, a manuscript reputedly sealed for centuries in a private Masonic archive. Its pages tell of a journey through darkness into light, not a journey of force, but of gentle unveiling. The initiate meets a veiled woman who offers no words, only a rose and a mirror. The mirror reflects not the face, but the soul's depth. The rose, a symbol of unfolding and transformation, to meet the veiled feminine, is to confront the paradox of presence and absence, form and formlessness. She is the sacred paradox at the heart of all creation, the known and unknown, the manifest and the hidden in modern interpretations. Some scholars suggest that acknowledging this feminine essence within Freemasonry could transform the way. The order is understood not as a patriarchal secret society, but as a living tradition of balance, weaving masculine and feminine wisdom into the fabric of spiritual growth. Tonight, as you rest beneath the quiet stars, imagine a soft veil, woven from moonlight and shadow, draped gently over your shoulders. It does not hide you. It reveals the sacred space within. You find yourself in a quiet garden where a figure stands veiled, neither seen nor unseen. Her presence is a silence deeper than words, a knowing without speech. You reach out and the veil brushes past your fingertips, cool and light. In that touch you feel a quiet power, the power of mystery, of hidden wisdom, and of gentle strength. As you drift toward sleep, hold this presence close. The veiled feminine is not a secret to be uncovered. She is a presence to be honored, a gentle guide into the depths of your own soul. In the balance of light and shadow, of knowing and not knowing, you find a calmness, a space where mysteries can rest and where your spirit can breathe. She watches over the sacred silence, the space where dreams begin. In the shadowy corners of history, where whispers linger like dust on forgotten shelves, there lies a book both feared and revered, the Lost Grimoire. Neither myth nor mere legend, this tome was said to contain secrets so profound, so potent, that its very existence was denied. Its pages hidden from all but the most trusted hands. The Freemasons, guardians of arcane knowledge and sacred mysteries, are believed to have possessed this grimoire, a volume unlike any other, its cover worn by centuries of concealment, its pages inscribed with cryptic incantations, celestial charts, and forbiddens. Writes. The Lost Grimoire was not a book of spells alone. It was a codex of cosmic law, a manual of initiation into hidden dimensions of reality, blending philosophy, magic, and sacred geometry into a seamless whole. Its origin is veiled in mystery. Some scholars trace it back to medieval alchemists, others to secretive orders in Renaissance Europe. Whatever its source, the grimoire was whispered to be a compendium of knowledge collected from diverse traditions, Hermetic, Kabbalistic, Egyptian, and early Christian mysticism. Within its fragile pages, the grimoire laid out methods for aligning the soul with the divine order, techniques of meditation, invocation, and symbolic transformation that transcended ordinary understanding. One passage, often quoted but never fully revealed, spoke of the 7 keys, archetypal principles that unlock the hidden chambers of the mind and spirit. These keys were said to correspond with the 7 classical planets, the chakras, and stages of spiritual awakening. Each key a doorway, each doorway a journey deeper into the heart of mystery. For centuries the lost grimoire was shrouded in secrecy. Rumors circulated that attempts to publish it led to fire and confiscation. That copies were scattered, hidden in crypts, locked in vaults beneath ancient lodges. Some Freemasons believed the grimoire's power was too great for common knowledge. Its teachings were entrusted only to those who had proved worthy, those who carried the sacred balance of humility and courage. The grimoire also contained warnings. Not all knowledge is without consequence. Its pages spoke of the dangers of misuse, of arrogance, greed, and the unraveling of the soul's delicate harmony. Throughout history, the lost grimoire inspired countless seekers, artists, and mystics. Its influence can be traced subtly in Renaissance art, in secret symbols carved into architecture, and in the whispered prayers of those who sought to glimpse the unseen dot. In modern times, the grimoire remains elusive. Some believe fragments survive encoded within other Masonic texts, or hidden in plain sight. Others think it lives as a metaphor, a symbol of the eternal quest for truth, a reminder that some knowledge must be earned, not demanded. Tonight, as you settle into quietude, imagine opening a heavy ancient book. Its pages smell of old parchment and whispered secrets. The script glows faintly, alive with a power that is both beautiful and humbling. You turn the pages slowly, feeling the weight of centuries in your hands. Each word invites you deeper into a sacred dance, a dance of shadow and light, of question and answer, of the known and the forever mysterious. The lost grimoire closes softly. Its secrets are not lost, but patiently waiting for the right moment, the right heart to unfold their truth once more. And as your breath slows and your eyelids grow heavy, know that the journey into hidden knowledge is also a journey into rest. In the silence of the night, the soul finds peace. In the quiet of mystery, you find home. In the soft shadows, where time folds quietly upon itself. The stories of forbidden books whispered by the Freemasons linger not only in ink and parchment, but in the subtle echoes that ripple beyond the pages. These echoes are not words written down, but impressions left upon the soul, faint, elusive, and infinite. The books themselves may be hidden or lost, yet their presence persists in the breath of architecture, the rhythm of rituals, and the silence between spoken truths. They haunt the spaces where light and shadow meet, in the slow unfolding of secrets meant not for possession, but for becoming. In this final chapter, we trace these echoes, the intangible legacy of those forbidden tomes that shaped not only a secret society, but the very fabric of human yearning for knowledge and meaning. These books, though hidden, shaped centuries of thought and spirit. They carried seeds of wisdom from ancient mystery schools, mystical philosophies, and lost civilizations, their ideas woven into the foundation stones of Freemasonry. The echoes live in the symbols etched into temple walls, each line and curve a whisper of the texts long concealed. In the quiet moments of initiation, when the lodge grows still and breath slows, these echoes are felt, not heard but known. They resonate in the silent gaze of the initiate, whose journey is less about acquiring secrets and more about awakening. to what has always been. The forbidden books were never truly lost. They were waiting for a consciousness ready to hear the silent language beyond words. These echoes stretch outward, reaching into art, literature, and the very architecture of modern cities. Many cathedrals and public buildings bear subtle Masonic designs, references to hidden knowledge, to the sacred geometry of the universe, to the ancient rhythms once recorded in those forbidden tomes. The Freemasons believe that knowledge is alive, not fixed, not owned, but flowing like a river beneath the surface of history. The books were vessels for this flow, but the true treasure lies in the movement itself, the ever-changing dance of discovery. This dance calls each of us to listen deeply, to feel the rhythm of hidden truths in our own lives, and to honor the mysteries that defy easy answers. Tonight, as you prepare to rest, imagine these echoes as a gentle hum beneath your skin, the pulse of something greater than any single book or symbol, a timeless song carried softly on the wind. Feel yourself becoming part of this rhythm, a quiet participant in the unfolding story of light and shadow, of hidden and revealed. Forbidden books, the secret symbols, the veiled wisdom, all dissolve into this infinite echo. They remind us that some mysteries are not meant to be solved, but lived. As your breath deepens and your mind quiets, let yourself be carried by this echo into the space where dreams and knowledge meet. Here, in this calm, reflective space, you rest, held by the unseen hands of history, mystery, and the gentle night. Sleep well, knowing you are part of a story far greater than any page, and that the echoes of wisdom will softly guide you through the hours ahead. Amid the whispering corridors of history, there have always been those who serve as quiet custodians, guardians not of power, but of trust. They hold knowledge not to wield it like a weapon, but to protect its delicate flame, ensuring its light survives through the ages. The Freemasons, in their veiled chambers and ritual shadows, stand among these custodians. This chapter invites you to step softly into the world of those who guarded forbidden books, those who chose silence over spectacle and patience over haste. The custodians were often unseen, librarians, scribes, scholars, and initiates who understood the profound responsibility of their charge. To them, forbidden books were not treasures to be flaunted, but sacred vessels carrying the fragile wisdom of humanity's deepest quests. They understood that knowledge, like a flame, could both illuminate and consume. The words they preserved were steeped in layers of meaning, encoded not only to protect the knowledge, but to nurture the seeker's patience and reverence. In the quiet hours, long after the lodges emptied and the candles burned low, these custodians worked, cataloging, copying, interpreting. Their devotion was a silent prayer, an act of love woven into every inked letter and carefully turned page. Many of these custodians came from humble origins, drawn not by wealth or fame, but by a calling, a quiet flame within that whispered of deeper truths waiting to be discovered. Through wars, persecutions, and upheavals, they preserved what others sought to destroy or forget. Some risked exile, or worse, to hide books in secret chambers, underground vaults, or the very walls of their homes. The legacy of the quiet custodians is one of humility and steadfastness. They teach us that true guardianship requires not dominance, but devotion, that sometimes the greatest power lies in listening and waiting. Within Freemasonry, The role of the custodian is reflected in the careful stewardship of ritual and tradition. Every symbol, every word passed down carries the imprint of generations who understood the sacred trust of preservation. Tonight, as you settle into stillness, imagine yourself stepping into a quiet library. The air is cool and carries the soft scent of aged paper and cedarwood. Rows upon rows of ancient tomes stand like silent sentinels, waiting patiently. In the center of the room, a figure moves gently, a keeper of these sacred texts. There is no urgency, no haste, only a deep, unspoken understanding of the weight they bear. You watch as the custodian opens a forbidden book, its cover worn but strong. The pages rustle softly, revealing layers of mystery folded within delicate script and hidden symbols. The custodian's touch is reverent, a dance between respect and curiosity. They do not rush to reveal, but to honor. In this sacred space, you sense the timeless rhythm of guardianship, the passing of knowledge not as possession, but as a sacred trust to be held lightly and shared wisely. As your eyelids grow heavy, imagine yourself becoming a quiet custodian as well, not of books alone, but of the wisdom you carry in your heart, to hold your own truths with care, and to honor the mysteries that still await gentle unfolding. In the silence of this moment, rest in the comfort of this sacred trust. You are cradled by history, held by the quiet custodians who walked before you, and watched over by the gentle night. May their patience and devotion become part of your own story, carried softly as you drift into peaceful sleep, beneath the stone temples and vaulted cathedrals. Beneath the catacombs and crypts of old, there lies a deeper library still, one with no walls, no locks, and no shelves. A library not of the world, but within it. Not beneath the ground, but beneath awareness itself. The Freemasons, in their quiet way, hinted often at this secret space, a place not constructed by hands, but discovered in stillness. They called it many names: the inner temple, the chamber of reflection, the mind's vault. But always it was described the same way, not hidden, but overlooked. This chapter leads us gently toward that place, the library beneath the mind, where all forbidden books are not stored, but remembered. The ancients believed that true wisdom was not inserted into the soul, but drawn out of it. That every sacred text, every ciphered truth, every whispered teaching, lives already inside each of us, buried beneath distraction and forgetfulness. Like seeds dormant beneath the frost, they wait. And so the Freemasons crafted rituals not to teach, but to awaken. They did not tell initiates what to know. They led them through mystery, so knowledge might rise from within. The library beneath the mind is not made of paper or ink. Its shelves are woven from silence. Its archives are stored in symbols. Its light does not cast shadows, but dissolves them. In quiet meditation, in symbolic ritual, in the slow unfolding of the self, the initiate begins to perceive the outlines of this internal sanctuary. It is not a place of logic, but of pattern. Not of rules, but of resonance. Within this library, the forbidden books are not read in sequence. They are felt. One does not find a title. One discovers a memory, a glyph that glows softly, a phrase that hums in the heart, a dream that lingers longer than it should. Some initiates spoke of visions within this space, of being handed luminous scrolls by unseen guides, or finding stone tablets etched with golden words they had never read. yet somehow new psychologists might call it the deep unconscious. Mystics might name it the soul's archive. But to the Freemasons it was simply the place where truth is whole. Many Masonic tools reflect this idea. The trowel, to smooth the mortar of thought. The compass, to draw the circle of attention inward. The plumb line, to measure not walls, but depths. All of these, in their symbolic way, guide the initiate toward this inner library. Not to extract answers, but to become aligned with the pattern from which answers arise. There are no librarians here, only stillness, and within that stillness, the book of you, a book written not in language, but in feeling, rhythm, image. Its chapters shaped by memory, mystery, and the longing to remember something long forgotten. Tonight, as your thoughts begin to soften, imagine walking slowly through a corridor of light. There are no doors, only thresholds. You pass through gently, as if through a dream. Ahead you see a chamber formed of stillness itself. You do not knock. The space opens as you arrive. You enter the library beneath the mind. There are no books. And yet you know you are surrounded by knowledge older than stars. Every breath feels like a page turning. Every heartbeat a verse. You sit quietly and listen. There is no sound. And then, not heard but felt, comes a line rising from the silence. What you seek is already within you, waiting to be remembered. You do not speak. You do not move. You simply breathe, and the pages turn. The library beneath the mind is not a destination. It is a return, a homecoming to the deepest truths you carry in your bones and breath. The forbidden books were never lost. They are here, alive in symbol, alive in silence, alive in you. And now, as you drift into sleep, may you dream not of seeking, but of remembering, of the quiet chamber within, where the eternal library waits. As the journey through secret pages and hidden chambers draws near its close, we come upon the final rite, the culmination of the Freemason's path through forbidden knowledge. This rite is not simply a ceremony, but a profound transformation, a sacred passage from knowing to being, from seeking to embodying. The final rite, veiled in mystery and seldom witnessed by the uninitiated, serves as the ultimate act of reconciliation between the outer world and the inner sanctuary. It is the moment when the seeker steps beyond symbols and texts, merging the wisdom of the forbidden books with the living light within. Historically, this rite is said to have involved a series of solemn rituals, each layered with symbolic meaning, from the silent reflection in the chamber of the heart to the measured steps along the path of the compass. Every movement echoed the sacred geometry of creation itself. The initiate is led through a sequence of gestures, lighting candles, tracing signs, reciting verses not heard but felt. Each act draws them deeper into the ancient rhythm of transformation, where time seems to fold, and the veil thins between worlds. In this rite, the forbidden becomes not a boundary, but a bridge, a threshold where what was hidden is no longer separate, but integrated, the shadows and the light dancing as one. The ritual's essence is not to reveal secret formulas or arcane knowledge, but to awaken a profound realization that the true book of wisdom is lived experience, that the sacred texts, no matter how hidden, serve ultimately to guide us back to ourselves. The final rite invites the initiate to shed illusions of mastery and control, embracing instead the humility of being a seeker forever in motion. It is a quiet surrender, a moment of profound trust in the unfolding mystery. Within Freemasonry, this rite represents the passing from one level of understanding to another, a continual rebirth of insight. It is less an ending than a new beginning, a perpetual cycle of death and renewal, loss and discovery. The significance of the final rite extends beyond the lodge walls. It whispers to all who carry secret longings, those who feel the pull of hidden knowledge, but also the gentle call to rest in mystery. Tonight, as you prepare to drift into sleep, imagine standing at the threshold of this rite. The room is filled with soft candlelight, the air thick with ancient fragrance, myrrh, sandalwood, and cedar. You take a slow breath and step forward, your footsteps light, your heart open. A quiet voice guides you, not with commands, but with invitation. You move through the ritual as if in a dream, each gesture resonating deeply within. The light grows softer, the silence more profound. At the rite's close, you find yourself surrounded by a radiant stillness, a peace born not of answers, but of surrender. You feel the weight of hidden books lift from your shoulders, replaced by a gentle knowing that wisdom is a living light, held softly in your own hands. The final rite closes the chapter on the secret tomes, but opens the way to the living truth, carried in your breath and soul. As your eyelids grow heavy, rest in this sacred space, held by the quiet power of transformation, cradled by the eternal rhythm of mystery, and carried gently into the calm of night. At the end of every long corridor, after every veil is lifted, and each key turned in silence, there remains one last book, the one that cannot be found in libraries or archives. It was never hidden, and yet it was never revealed. It was never forbidden, and yet no one dares claim to have read it whole. It is the book that was never written. The Freemasons spoke of it, sometimes in metaphor, sometimes in gesture, a volume that could not be bound, whose chapters could not be printed, and whose wisdom could not be translated. It is not stored in stone vaults beneath cathedrals, nor wrapped in velvet beneath the altars of secret chambers. This final book is life itself. Its pages are formed of breath, of dreams, of gentle choices made in quiet hours. Its words are not written in ink, but in action, in kindness, in pauses filled with awareness. Throughout your journey in this series across grimoires, lost gospels, celestial charts, and encrypted petals, we've wandered through the whispered history of secret knowledge. We have listened together in the soft hours of night to the songs of the past. But now, at the very end, we arrive not at a hidden vault, but at a mirror. The book that was never written reflects the reader more than it reveals its own content. It is ever-changing, shaped by the eyes that open it and the heart that dares to read between its lines. The Freemasons understood this. Every degree, every lesson, every tool in their temple pointed not to possession of wisdom, but to becoming it. The square and compass are not instructions. They are invitations. The lost word is not a phrase, but a state of alignment. And the most forbidden book is not secret because it is hidden, but because it must be lived to be understood. In their rituals, the Masons asked the initiate not to recite truths, but to embody them, to walk with care, to build the inner temple with patience, to sit with mystery, not to solve it, but to let it speak. And so this final chapter is not about a lost manuscript or a coded diagram. It is about you, about the library you carry in your breath, about the sacred text of your memory, your mistakes, your moments of wonder. The final book is written every day in how we listen, how we forgive, how we seek and surrender. It is the text you leave behind in the hearts of others, in the light you share when no one is watching. Some say that when the soul reaches the threshold beyond this life, it is not judged by a doctrine or a scroll, but by being asked one quiet question: what did you do with the light you were given? And perhaps that, too, is a page in the unwritten book. Tonight, as your breathing deepens and your thoughts slow, imagine sitting in a quiet chamber with no walls, just starlight above and soft earth below. In your lap rests a book made of light. It opens not with a creak, but with a sigh. There are no letters, no chapters, only moments. You see them glowing faintly on each page. The time you chose compassion. The time you waited without resentment. The time you returned to your path after wandering away. This book cannot be taken, cannot be burned, cannot be lost, because it is you, your living testament, your silent masterpiece. And in this peaceful hour, know this: you do not need to find every forbidden book. You do not need to read every ancient word, because the greatest truths are already within you, unfolding slowly, page by page. Each night you rest, each day you rise. The final secret is not hidden in ink, but in presence. And now, as your eyes gently close, you place the unwritten book beside your heart. Its pages hum with quiet joy. Its cover glows faintly in the dark, and the story continues in silence, in sleep, in light. Good night.